So this is the workshop series we've been doing throughout the year around tobacco, vaping, and other drugs. We've also talked, a little bit about the conversation that we did in November. We've touched on, looking at marijuana, its harms and effects with students, how to kind of locate it and know what to look for with your children. We know there's been concerns this year with the increase of vaping and other substance use. So we're definitely excited that you're here to get this information. Next slide, please. So in this piece, we're going to be talking about the conversation and advocating in your community. And our focus really is to give you a skill set to be able to have those conversations with your children that you either you suspect may be using, maybe that and it's already been identified. But sometimes those can be tough conversations to have, especially if we are kind of in a reactive type of situation where we need to kind of maybe step back, understand like an appropriate way to kind of to talk to our youth, because we know that sometimes just trying to scare them into facts or other things that we may think might be effective, me as a parent included, I've learned that sometimes it's best to just kind of know and have a plan going in. So that's kind of really what we're focused on. We're going to be talking a little bit about how you could be an advocate in your community as well. And then we're going to be sharing just some resources and information that we have with some of the summer programs that are taking place this summer in our district. Next slide, please. So before actually we get started, I'm going to turn this over to our two presenters today from Health Education Council. Lynn Vo and Joanna Ramirez will be presenting. But I just wanted to let you guys know a little bit about housekeeping. And I'm sure you saw the information about the $25 Starbucks gift card. So how that's going to work basically is we're going to, at the end of the presentation, there's going to be a Zoom poll that's launched. We will need you to participate in that Zoom poll in order to be entered to win the Starbucks gift card. We will have 3 winners. So pretty good chances, so go ahead and, like I said, make sure you stay on to the end of the presentation. The poll should take more than a minute or two. And then after that, we'll have some time for questions. And then from there, like I said, you'll be contacted via email at the latest by Monday. And what we'll do is there are digital gift cards. So, making sure that you have the correct email, hopefully when you registered, because that will be the email that we send it to. And with that, I'll go ahead and pass it over to Health Education Council.
Okay, hi everyone. My name is Lynn, and I'm here with my partner Joanna, and we're part of Health Education Council, which is a nonprofit whose mission is to cultivate health and well-being in underserved communities by leveraging the power of collaboration. And our programs meet community identified needs and are designed to address the underlying drivers of health. One of our programs is Lucha Tobacco, and we offer workshops, trainings, and assistance for school staff, clinic staff, health professionals, and for parent community groups. So here's a little overview of today's presentation. So we'll go into e-cigarettes, tobacco health harm, tobacco products, progress in tobacco control, the conversation, and we're going to have a little activity in breakout rooms. Then we'll move forward with community organizations, advocating in your community, community resources, and youth summer opportunities. So let's review what e-cigarettes are. So e-cigarettes are made up of 60 or more chemical compounds. The harmful consequences of e-cigs are lung damage, slows brain development, and nicotine addiction. And vaping, which has been pretty popular lately with the youth because of the different flavors, puts nicotine into your system. And nicotine is actually highly addictive and can slow down the brain development in teens and can affect memory, concentration, learning, self-control, attention, and mood. And it can also increase the risk of other types of addiction later on in life. And e-cigarettes actually can irritate the lungs as well, and they can cause serious lung damage and even death in the future, and can lead to smoking cigarettes and other forms of tobacco use. And if someone is smoking and vaping, they're harming their health by becoming addicted to nicotine, and they're also inhaling other cancer-causing chemicals. So nicotine has not been found directly to cause mental health conditions, but there have been numerous studies that reveal a link between vaping, nicotine, and worsening symptoms of depression and anxiety. And nicotine makes these symptoms of anxiety and depression even worse. So actually 81% of the youth said that they've been starting to use e-cigs to lower their own existing stress and anxiety, but little did they know that nicotine can actually make it worse. And there's also some health effects towards people who don't smoke or vape. So for example, this is secondhand smoke. This is smoke from burning tobacco that has been involuntarily inhaled. And there's actually no risk-free level of exposure to secondhand smoke. And for third-hand smoke, these are leftover nicotine and tobacco particles that get stuck on surfaces, furniture, and clothing. And this can be especially harmful to babies who are crawling around or children who are touching everything and putting everything in their mouths without washing their hands since they're too young to be aware of this. And then when you have people who smoke in multi-unit housing, such as apartments or condos, the smoke can actually travel around from unit to unit. The secondhand smoke from smokers to non-smoker units can go through vents, walls, floors, and windows. Even having your fans on or your windows open doesn't really help a lot. And exposure to this secondhand smoke is a risk factor for underlying health conditions that have been linked to more severe COVID-19 disease, including heart disease, diminished lung function, and associated risk of respiratory illnesses. So it's really important to advocate for smoke-free multi-unit housing for everyone, especially for those that are high risk, such as children, the elderly, and then other people with underlying health conditions. And then e-cigarette smoke are not as harmless as you think. Most people think it's harmless water vapor, but it actually contains harmful chemicals in it. And when people use these in public, it can expose bystanders to this secondhand aerosol, and it can make enforcement of smoke-free policies really hard and challenging. And it can also influence the view on tobacco use and making them seem more acceptable to use and have in public. So moving on to the types of e-cigarettes. So most have a battery, a heating element, and a place to hold a liquid. Some e-cigarettes are made to look like regular cigarettes or cigars or pipes. Some look like pens, USB sticks, and other everyday items. E-cigarettes can be used to deliver marijuana or other drugs into your body system. And these are just a few examples of the different kinds, such as the closed systems, the pod-based and disposable ones, the refillable pen open systems, the tank system pods, and vape pens. And some reasons why teenagers might be using e-cigarettes are because they're curious, they like the flavors that they come in, they think they're safe, they seek the stimulant quality of the nicotine, or they want to perform tricks with the exhaled vapor, like making little clouds out of it or making little circle clouds, things like that. Or they want to push limits set by adults and rebel against them, or they see their friends using them, they want to try it out. Or they can also be exposed to e-cigarette marketing in the media too. So for tobacco products, the Food and Drug Administration has passed a ban on all pre-filled flavored nicotine pods, with the exception of tobacco and menthol. So the FDA policy does not allow any pre-filled flavored vape pods that snap into the vapes. And the products that the FDA policy continues to allow to be sold are pre-filled pod vapes, like Juul or Fix, are no longer sold in flavor pods, but pre-filled menthol and tobacco flavored pods are still on the market. And then refillable pods like the Soren Drops are still sold and available in all different types of kid-friendly flavors. And then the single-use disposable vapes like the Puff Bar and the Posh vapes, they don't have the pods, but they contain the flavor nicotine and are becoming more and more popular among the kids. And then these vape pens, they're refillable in thousands of different types of kid-friendly flavors. And then also these flavored products over here, these are disposable e-cigarettes that uses pods, and then e-liquid used in rechargeable vaping devices. And you can see like the packaging is very similar to candy and dessert products. And then these little cigars that come in a variety of sweet flavors and are sold in single and multi-packs, hookahs, and then menthol cigarettes, and then also smokeless tobacco. So what is the attraction to the e-cigarettes? Tobacco companies know that flavors attract youth the most, and they've used this fact to exploit them by selling over 15,000 types of flavors for e-cigarettes. And 80% of the tobacco users start before the age of 18, and this is due to many reasons. One being over half of them have started with menthol cigarettes since this is the most popular and the most common flavor that they're sold in. And then the youth actually have cited the flavors as the top reason for using e-cigarettes. 97% of the youth who vape actually use flavored products. And among high school students who typically use any type of flavored e-cigarettes, the most commonly used flavors were fruit, mint, and menthol. For middle school students who currently use any type of flavored e-cigarettes, the most commonly used flavors were fruit, candy, desserts, and other sweets and mint.
Okay, and then for tobacco for progress in tobacco control, so there have been a lot of there's been a lot of progress in tobacco control, both locally, statewide, and then even more recently, nationwide. So we'll start with the local efforts, and we can start with the flavor bans that have passed in the city of Sacramento, and that applies to the incorporated and unincorporated. So all of the city of Sacramento has this flavor ban implemented where retailers are not allowed to sell those tobacco products that come in flavors. So mainly the only ones they would be able to sell are menthol and the regular tobacco, the tobacco products. And then for the smoke-free, there's also been local efforts in smoke-free multi-unit housing policies. So how Lynn mentioned, protecting those people that live in multi-unit housing and, protecting them from inhaling that secondhand smoke and third-hand smoke. So there has been a lot of local efforts with those two, and then statewide with the SB 793, which is a statewide ban that would ban the sale of flavored tobacco products, including flavored e-cigarettes and menthol cigarettes. So it was signed into law in 2020, but the tobacco industry, they immediately filed a referendum, pretty much just blocking it from actually going into law. And now the Californian residents will have the chance to actually vote on the issue. So it was actually going to go on the ballot last year, but now it'll be in the November 22 ballot. So, if you're voting, please make sure to, look out for that and be informed on this SB 793 statewide ban on those flavored products. Next slide. Okay, so now going into, identifying those signs of e-cigarette and vaping use. And this also goes into, some marijuana products. So some of the signs that you can look out for, we could start with equipment. So this would be, if you find any devices that look like flash drives, like the ones that look like the USB drives, or e-liquid bottles, or those pods or cartridges, and those contain the e-juice, or just any other product packaging, like just the boxes that these products come in. And then aside from the leaf marijuana, those you could also look for gel jars that contain the highly concentrated marijuana extract, which is also known as dabs. And you can also look for some small tools that they use to scoop the powdered dab material, and also for cartridges. And these contain the THC oil or the wax. And those, if you see any of those products, these are signs of vaping marijuana. And then going into any online or mail purchases, if you see any of these, or like store packages in the mail, or store purchases, so you just want to be on the lookout for those purchases that are either made online or charged to your credit card, or any other unusual packages that you see arriving in the mail. kids, tend to buy them at big box stores or even at gas stations, or, if they're too young, their friends, their like older friends will buy them for them. And then another thing is if you notice like a scent or a smell. And so while the smell from vaping is really light and faint, you may catch, like a whiff of the flavoring where there, appears to be no other source. So, you may randomly smell like not even bubble gum, but I mean bubble gum or like, chocolate or just like a really sweet smell. So this is an example of those vaping products because they do come in a variety of different flavors. So like I mentioned, it could be flavored nicotine, and for marijuana vapes, that smell will be a lot stronger because it smells, like a skunk-like flavor, smell. And then for increased thirst, or if you notice like increased thirst, or if you see that they start having a lot of nosebleeds, or that they're just they have an interest in stronger flavors. So some of these chemicals used in e-juices, they tend to dry out the mouth and the nose, which would result in an increased thirst and nosebleeds. So so kids will want to drink more liquids, and they also may show a desire for stronger flavors, and this is because their mouth is dry. And then another thing is decreased caffeine use. So some teens and young adults who vape nicotine develop a sensitivity to caffeine because both nicotine and caffeine are stimulants. So taking multiple of these stimulants can result in feelings of anxiety. So if you notice that your child previously, drank a lot of caffeinated beverages, with whether it's like energy drinks or coffee, and you notice that they're not really drinking as much, it may be because they're using vaping products. And then another thing would be vaping slang. So you may see these the words for different vaping products, like in text messages, or even if you just hear it. So some of those would be like an Addy, which is for an atomizer, which is one of those products. A VG for like vegetable glycerin, which is found in e-juice, or maybe like if you hear the word sauce, and that's referring to the e-juice, or other words like getting nicked, or nick sick, and that has to do with the effects of the nicotine on their body. And just overall any other, there's a lot of different vaping slang, and we'll provide those resources for you guys so you guys can see those different words and different products. Then another thing is social media and online references. So kids often brag about their vaping exploits on social media. So if you want to look out for any pictures or references on their Instagram or their Snapchat, or Twitter or any other social media accounts, and you want to take note of those popular vaping terms, if you do have access to their phone and you you notice their online searches. And then another thing would be, changes in their appearance and their behavior. So vaping nicotine, it can lead to a lot of anxiety and irritability, and difficulty concentrating, along with a loss of appetite. And vaping marijuana can result in, the bloodshot eyes, the dry mouth, and the thirst, increased appetite, and also in shifts in behavior and mood. So sometimes there is a noticeable change also in their friends and, like who they're hanging out with, or they're just not doing the same activities that they used to before. And then the last one would be those physical symptoms, and those physical side effects of vaping. They include trouble breathing or headaches, cough, dizziness, sore throat, and chest pain, any allergic reactions, also like itchiness or, swelling of the lips. And some more severe effects would be, if they already have asthma, so this would be, a worsened asthma symptoms, as well as, even worse would be, lung disease or failure and heart disease. So next slide. So now going into, having that conversation with your kids. So before starting that conversation, you want to be sure that you are prepared and you have all of the necessary knowledge to provide that correct information to them. So just some quick tips before starting the conversation. You want to make sure that you do get educated and, you get all of that information. And you guys are doing that right now by, attending this workshop and learning all the signs and symptoms, as well as all that, the different slang and the different products. And then also knowing the signs and symptoms, and also just appealing to their good judgment, and letting them know that they're making smart decisions, and resisting the temptation to vape can be one of them. And then finding the right moment when to have that conversation, so choosing the right place and time. And then also, asking open-ended questions instead of asking, just a yes or no, to keep that conversation going. So next slide. So more into the conversation. So here are some tips to consider before you have that conversation with your kids. So number one would be, your goal is to keep that conversation going. So, you want to listen more and talk less, because, nothing shuts down that communication faster than, if you're yelling or you're judging them, or if they feel like they're being criticized by you. So a better approach is to listen and just asking them more questions and being more supportive overall. And then next would be for you not to freak out. So, just because they know or are doing it or vaping doesn't mean, or just because they know or are asking about vaping, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're doing it. So maybe they just want to know more information from you. So you want to make sure that if they're asking you questions, don't automatically, freak out and get mad. So you just want to, take some time and pause and really listen to them. And the next would be looking at where and when you are holding that conversation. So, you want to think before you start that conversation, like, are you trying to start a conversation while, they're focused on other things like studying or, playing a video game? So, you want to identify that those aren't the best times to talk to them because they're going to be distracted. And you want to look for those low pressure moments. So like, whether maybe you guys are like, cooking together, or they're just sitting at the kitchen table, just, eating some snacks. Or even if you're in the car with them, they can be in the back seat, or they're not sitting directly in front of you. So, it removes that pressure of the eye contact. But you guys know your kids best, so you'll know when that right time is. And then next would be to keep the touch points quick. So you want to have quick and frequent conversations, and those are a lot more effective than having just like a really big, long conversation with them, because it'll feel a lot more overwhelming for them. And having more smaller ones also helps you guys out, in your relationship, and them seeing that you're being supportive and in keeping that conversation going. And the next would be looking for those teachable moments. So you don't want to, so don't bring it back to people that they know or friends, because they don't want their friend, or they don't want to feel like their friends are being judged. But e-cigarettes are often in the news or part of an assembly or at school, so you want to make that conversation relevant, and your kid will feel like you're bringing up vaping. They won't feel like you're bringing it up just out of the blue. And then the last one would be that you want to remember that it's fine not to have all of the answers, and whether it's about vaping or other products, even peer pressure. You guys are also still learning as parents. Having that open conversation with them will help you guys, get closer and, on that journey of staying tobacco free and drug free. Next slide. And then some last tips for conversation starters. You want to remember to be proactive, and you can reduce your child's use by helping him or her be ready to say no. So having those conversations ahead of time, and then also looking for those teachable moments. And then, all of this will help you understand what they know, and then also what's left for you to educate them on. And then, so next we're going to go into our breakout rooms. We're going to spend about maybe like 15 or 20 minutes if needed in these breakout rooms, and we're going to have them in English and Spanish. And in these breakout rooms, we're going to show you guys an educational video on talking to your kids about tobacco and vaping. And then we're going to go through some sample conversations, responses, and questions that they may ask you, and have you guys, practice answering them. And then again, like it'll be a safe space for you guys to also talk amongst other parents and, you know, share your experiences and also just ask us any questions or tips. So from having that conversation or just starting that conversation with your kids, you just want to remember that, you know, once is not enough. You want to consider this an ongoing conversation. So after you have that, either the initial talk or just, you know, just a small talk, 6 tips for you to remember is to, you know, just say thank you to them and let your child know that you appreciate them for listening and for their honesty and for continuing to make those right decisions. And just letting them know that, you know, you're there for support or just for follow-up. And then you also want to help your child manage that stress and talk to your kid about any other larger concerns or pressures that they may be feeling. And also helping your child manage that peer pressure and, you know, consider rehearsing or role playing to give your kid the social tools to refuse those tobacco products. So, you know, how we practiced in the breakout rooms, having those conversations, maybe having like those practice conversations with your kids about, you know, like if their friends ask them this, how would they respond? And then just sharing any other facts with them, as well as just following up, you know, asking them how they're doing, and if they, you know, letting them know that they can also research things on their own or just research things together as well, and leaving those lines of communication open with them as well. And then staying up to date yourself, because, you know, vaping is, you know, an ever evolving issue, and keeping your child protected means that you are staying informed, and then just sharing that information as well with any other parents that you know also may be struggling with these same issues and that are struggling on figuring out how to address them as well. So just sharing information and resources with others is also really great. So next slide. And then last would probably be just, you know, advocating, whether that's in your neighborhood or in your school communities, or just in your general community. So how you can, you know, be an advocate in your community, and you could start small just in your neighborhood by connecting with your neighbors, your friends and family, and creating support groups and, you know, ideas for tobacco, and coming up with like ideas for tobacco and drug-free activities that you guys can do, you know, as neighbors, as friends, or just as a family. And then within your school community, you can also just, you know, find ways to be engaged in your child's school by either joining any existing parent groups at your children's schools or just starting your own parent support group within the school, and also participating in any tobacco and drug-free events that are going on. And, you know, bigger would be in your community, and this would be going into, you know, being involved in policy work or things that are happening, like how we mentioned, those local efforts, as well as, you know, that new law that's coming out with SB 793. So if you want to, you know, participate in a larger scale, it would be by, you know, providing a public comment or letters of support. And this would be going to your local city council for those like local policies that are going on. So there's a lot of ways for you guys to be, you know, advocates and be involved in your community by, you know, either being something small in your neighborhood or, you know, being engaged and participating in your schools. And then next slide. So we have a lot of community resources to share with you guys. So there are a lot of tobacco cessation programs here in Sacramento, most that are free, and then some that do have to charge. Resources. And we have some local resources like the 211 Sacramento number, just for any, you know, information and referral. And they just have a lot of information on counseling and other resources, as well as the public library has a lot of great, you know, books and programs and activities. And it's a great place for your kids to also be, you know, engaged in a place that, you know, also promotes a lot of learning. So next slide. And then we have some summer activity programs that we were able to, you know, look up for your kids. You know, school's going to be out soon, so we wanted to find some activities that your kids can be engaged in during the summer. And like I said, we'll share this list with you guys. There's a lot of summer camps going on in the area, and then some within the public library. They have their own events as well. They have a summer reading challenge, and then they also have an adult 101 workshop series. So it'll be going throughout the whole summer, and this is for ages 16 through 24, and it's on all kinds of different topics, health, mental health, on financial, budgeting. So there's a lot of things for them. And I do believe it's also free. So we'll share that website with you guys as well. And then I think Lynn will take over now.
So we wanted to promote this Don't Buy the Lie contest, which is for youth in grades 6 to 12. And it's an opportunity for them to just expose these tobacco and vaping companies to show who they really are. And they can do this by submitting an artwork to the website, which is down below for the QR code and the bit.ly link. They can win prizes up to $500, and the deadline for submission is May 15th. And which is coming up pretty soon. Next slide, please. And then this is a tobacco prevention ambassador corps, which is offered by the Health Education Council to give a 4-week community health training for youth ages 17 to 24. And it's also a paid project program too, so they can learn these different types of skills and other workshops as well. And the deadline is May 28th. And these are also resources for you and your kids. If your child is still skeptical, here are some links you can suggest so you can make so they can make up their own mind, and other resources for you to find more tips and info and to share with others. The California Smokers Helpline used to be 1-800-NO-BUTS, but it has been updated to Kick It California in order to address not just smoking cigarettes, but also chewing and vaping as well. And then thank you. That was it from HEC. I think there's a little bit more.
Yeah, and I'll take it over. Thank you so much. My name is Scott Kaiser, and I'm a program specialist with student services here at Twin Rivers Unified School District. Lynn and Joanna, very, very good job providing that information, very important information to our families. For the sake of time, I'm going to try and speed it up a little bit just so we can answer questions at the end. But on a district level, at our school district, we have many programs that are supporting youth surrounding alcohol, tobacco, and drugs. And like Lynn and Joanna talked about before, those conversations can be talked about anything, alcohol, tobacco, and drugs, not just specific to tobacco or nicotine or vaping, but can be with everything. And parents, you are the biggest advocates in your children's lives as far as advocating for a healthy environment for your children and for their future. So we have prevention. Go ahead and stay with that last slide, please. We have prevention curriculum. So we're teaching in our classrooms in 6th grade through 12th grade. We're teaching them about prevention, about harm and effects, about refusal skills. Some of the questions in the chat revolved around peer pressure or bullying. So we go over all that with our youth as well. We have youth development, which involves leadership, and a lot of our peer-to-peer outreach, which the peers, the students are leading this and teaching each other how to say no, the harm and effects. So it's very important from peer to peer. Sometimes they often listen to their own peers before they listen to us as parents. Intervention, we do have intervention resources where we provide students one-on-one intervention, or in groups if they have infractions at school, or if parents refer them to us. And we have cessation, kind of like Lynn and Joanna talked about, cessation to quit. We have referral systems for that. And then obviously family and community engagement, which we're doing right now. We have these type of workshop series for parents to inform them and educate them how to support their youth. Next slide, please. So our intervention services, it's called Brief Intervention Teen Intervene. We can do that instead of suspending a student. So if a student brought something to school or where they were under the influence at school, administrators can utilize this intervention service instead of suspending them, which I think is an awesome way. It's a restorative practice for youth to keep them and involve them and keep them safe at school instead of suspending them. And then if they're not being watched in a safe environment after, if parents have to work, they could be doing worse. So the referral process and resources I'll kind of go over in a minute. And we also have Care Solace, which we can refer them to support for mental health, as well as substance use as well. Next slide, please. This is kind of what the referral process looks like. Typically, health services staff, nurses, health assistants, or counselors will be involved first. They'll obviously, if a student is exhibiting signs of being under the influence, they'll refer them to an administrator to talk to them and get a better picture of what's going on. And then obviously parents will be contacted. But then following that, they will contact us as staff to provide that intervention. Next slide. Like Joanna and Lynn talked about, we have cessation services, and this will all be emailed to you as far as these slides, so you guys can always get this information as well. But this is for vaping and for smoking. Next slide. We also have Why Vape. So these cessation services would be involved. They could be utilized in lieu of suspension as well. So if your child is vaping or smoking, feel free, you can reach out to us. Edilberto Soto put the information in the chat, as well as our contact information. So feel free to reach out to us should you need that. Go next slide. And Edilberto is quickly, Jeremy is going to quickly go over summer programs just to keep, it's very important to keep your children busy and active so that they're not bored and curious and go down the wrong path and are peer pressured in long run to start doing vaping or other drugs, alcohol, tobacco, and other drugs. So Jeremy, I'll pass it over to you.
Yeah, I think for the sake of time, what I think would be a good idea, maybe if we could go to the poll questions. So I did want to talk about, so keep going to the poll questions, because I wanted to talk about the summer programs, but I also want to respect everyone's time, and it is 5 o'clock. So what we can do is we can launch the poll. If you have, if you can stay on for another few minutes, great. We can quickly go over the resources. And if, answer a few questions, we can stay on for a few extra minutes. So the looks like the poll launched. So you can see the questions on both sides. Just take a few minutes to answer those questions related to just the material that you heard today, and then the information in the breakout session. We also would love to know if these are materials that you could take to other people, your family, friends, and people in the community to share with. And then just it helps you provide a better understanding of what resources are available from the district. I know Scott touched a little bit on what we do, but you will have our information, like it's presented in the chat, but we'll also send that out as well. So if there's referrals for students, or for your students maybe that you are using, or whatever the case may be, like you can contact us, and we can provide intervention to those students as well. Alberto, how's the poll response looking?
At this point, we have about 10 people who have responded.
Okay, so if you want to win those Starbucks, have your chance to win a Starbucks gift card, you do have to complete the poll, because I'm going to be using your email address from the responses that we get from this. So please make sure, if you are interested in being entered in to win the Starbucks gift card, that you do complete it. It should only take you maybe 1 minute at the most, just to answer these 5 quick questions about how you feel on the presentation. You know what, while we're doing that, let's go ahead and go back to the K through 6. Yeah. So in the district, Joanna offered some great resources in the community. We also have a lot of great programs in our own district that are free of charge to our families. And I wanted to just give you this information. Like I said, Alberto dropped the link for our district website, which is through special projects in summer school. We have programs for early childhood education. So they have kinder camp, they have programs through K through 6, 7th grade, 8th grade, and then they have a 9th through 12th GRIP program, which is really focused on credit recovery. So this first program that you see here this is the K6 program they have, which is just Twin Rivers around the world. That's the theme. You can see the different locations. What they do is they have like certain schools. So say your child goes to a school that's close to Babcock. Well, then all of those schools and clusters would go to Babcock, right? So that's how it kind of works. So we can't have programs at every campus, but there is school to school transportation available for those programs as well. So you can see the QR code here as well. You can use that now, or you can go to the website. But all the information's there for all of these programs. And what you'll do is you'll fill out an interest form. Like I mentioned, the programs are free. The interest form just gives them your information. So they kind of have to make sure your student's Twin Rivers student. And then once space becomes available in those programs, they'll contact you with more information. So we can go to the next slide. Great. So there's two programs, one for 7th and one for 8th. The 7th grade programs also focus like the theme of around the world. There's also, those programs are going to be at Foothill Ranch in Norwood, but they are open to all 7th graders. They do have transportation. I do not myself know what the schedules will be, so you'd have to contact the special projects department, and it looks like their information was dropped in the chat as well. There's also an 8th grade summer bridge program that's happening, and that's really focused on helping those 8th graders that are transitioning into high school kind of know what's going on. It'll give an opportunity to meet possibly some high school students already attending those campuses so they can network with them and build some relationships. And that last slide, if you would please, that is just for the 9th through 12th grade graduate, well, it's called the GRIP program. And so those, once again, so all grant students will be at Grant, CCA, Highlands, and Foothill. They're all going to, I can't see because it's blocked on my screen right there, but I believe they're going to Highlands. There it is. Yeah. And the last one you can't see, but it's, like I said, all this information there is available on the website. So please go check that out. Like I said, there's a lot of great programs. From my understanding, there's availability for most. So with that, I will, this is our contact information. So I'm Jeremy Combs. I'm a program development specialist. You also heard from Scott. Like I mentioned, we are available to help with any questions you have after this training. We are limited availability in the summertime, but we'll be back, July, August to hit the ground running to continue to, serve your students and provide these types of programs to continue, helping prevent them from using. So we just wanted to thank everyone. We have a few minutes for questions. So if anyone has a question, go ahead and unmute.